Good evening, everybody. Welcome to Bristol Township Council meeting for October 17th, 2024, and the starting time is 7:01. So please stand for a pledge of allegiance. A moment of silence for all our military personnel overseas here, police officers, and our EMS. Thank you.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Roll call.
President Bowen.
Here.
Vice President Murphy.
Present.
Mr. Antonello.
Here.
Mr. Blaylock.
Here.
Ms. Dunlap.
Present.
Mr. Glassen.
Here.
Ms. Wagner.
Present.
Before the meeting started, we met in executive session. Mr. Hobart.
Yes, thank you. Yes, Bristol Township Council met in executive session prior to this meeting, where issues of township real estate, collective bargaining negotiations, and personnel issues were discussed.
Thank you. Monthly reports are available for review in the Township Manager's office. Public comments will be taken on land development and official action items. General comments will be taken during opportunity for residents to address council. Next, we have presentation. We have Daisy and William Myers Memorial Committee. Great to see you again.
Yeah, good to see you. Good evening. Thank you for the opportunity to present to you the work of the Daisy and William Myers Committee, which directly affects Bristol Township. My name's Keith Pacheco. I'm the chair of the committee, currently housed at United Christian Church on New Falls Road in Levittown. United Christian Church is a progressive faith community, and as such, we have a stance against racism. About 2 years ago, we did a book study on a book called White Too Long by Robert P. Jones. We were inspired by that book to ask, what can we do to tell the story of Levittown in regard to racism? We chose to tell the story of Daisy and William Myers, the first black family to move into Levittown in 1957. The committee has been meeting since March of 2023, and so far we have settled on a Pennsylvania historical marker as our first endeavor. We drafted proposed language for that marker. We compiled a list of 3 possible locations that we would favor for the marker. We obtained a taxpayer identification from the IRS and are in the process of applying to incorporate as a 501c3 nonprofit. We created bylaws to govern the corporation and elected officers for the corporation. We are honored to have as members of our committee Linda Myers, the youngest child of Daisy and William, as well as the Weschler children, Katie and Nick, who lived next door to the Myers and were supporters and suffered disruption to their lives along with the Myers. We were also excited to learn during our research that the first pastor of our church, Reverend Ray Harwick, then known as the Church of the Reformation, was the chairman of the Levittown Citizens Committee group, a Levittown Citizens Committee, a group of Myers community supporters. So we are continuing that legacy. That is a brief history of how we got here. And to tell you more about what we would like to accomplish, I would like to introduce Shannon Walsh, the treasurer of the committee and a Levittown resident.
Hi, I will be you also? I will be very brief as well. So our hope is that by coming before you now, we, as Randy said when we met, we want to be collaborative. We don't want to come before the committee and say, this is what we want, do it. This is something we want to be, that the community's involved in, and that the whole community can be proud of. Like he said, we would like to have a historical marker. That program should be reopening in 2025. But we've also considered things like possibly, I know my children go to Mill Creek Elementary, and they have a really beautiful mural of all the original Levittown houses and a big map of Levittown. So perhaps something like that in one of the schools that can tell the story of the Myers. We've thought about having something that's readable and interactive, possibly with the tree out over near the park. So we have a lot of different ideas, a lot of different ways that we'd like this to just be something that can especially with the kids. If something in the school would be really, really wonderful because it's a part of their personal history here in Levittown. So in any event, we're really excited. This is in the very early stages, and we plan on being in contact with Randy and Craig just to say, hey, what do you think? So please, if you have any feedback, if you have ideas, we welcome that, and we're really excited to see what this turns into. So thank you.
Yeah, great job. Thank you. Looking forward for it. Thank you very much. Is there contact information? Do you have an email that, you have the email? Okay, so council can
You'll
email.
disseminate that to us, Randy? That's
Yeah.
great.
And your 501c, do you have a name for it yet?
Well, it's the Daisy and William Myers Memorial Committee.
Okay, that's the
Yeah, and
pack.
so if you have any questions, please reach out to the committee.
Right,
and,
will do.
We'll answer anything we can.
Okay,
The,
great. All right.
the more exposure you get for this, the better it is
Yeah.
for the
Great time.
lives of everyone in the community. It should spark, what I'm sure you wanted to do is to spark that questioning and a sense of pride about how this difficulty was overcome, even though it was something, tragic on its face at the time, but now we want to revel in how we overcome it and celebrate that part of it, right? I mean, that's how I feel about what you're doing.
Absolutely, and also I think it helps bridge the gap between
Ex-
understanding how maybe the way things look today sometimes are still affected by that. So it helps just having that understanding, like there's cause and effect, and this is how we got here. So yeah, absolutely, I think it's good. It's coming from a place of love.
I
So
get it.
not,
Yeah,
So
and
as
thank
long as
you.
that's what's driving it.
Thank you for adding that, what I so inartfully couldn't express, but there you go.
Thank you for coming out, and feel free to stay for the rest of the meeting, but don't feel obligated. All right? Thank you. Yep, yeah, because next on the agenda is 2023 audit presentation by Carl Hogan.
What are they trying to say,
Hi.
Good to see you again.
Good. I'm putting some snippets of the audit report up here, but first and foremost, I know Randy's already told you, I'm a little bit behind this year. We went through a merger. I had a manager leave, a lot fell on me, so we're in the process of wrapping up the audit now. But it's really important that I get here and present this information as you go into the 2025, budget season, et cetera. So you need a base as of 2023, you know where you are in 2024. So this will kind of give kind of a framework to close out 23 and to officially, finish up 24 and go into the 25 budget season. The most important thing, obviously, is the independent auditors report. This is what you provide, what you pay us to provide the township on an annual basis. And this is on the first 3 pages of the auditor's report. So the idea is I should have this wrapped up, full audit report, I'm hoping by the beginning of next week, so we can present that to you as it goes through our quality control process, and you can review that in the meantime. But in the meantime, these are probably the most important snippets that we just haven't put together in the full document. The first page of the independent auditor's report, the first paragraph, the most important thing in the whole audit report, the opinion paragraph, basically stating that the numbers that are presented to us by management for the year ended December 31st, 2023 are fairly presented. The township does a really nice job within the business office. We rarely, if anything, have any type of journal entries to post. So what you're seeing on a monthly basis and what you're being provided at the end of the year is basically what's going to be reported here tonight. The rest of the audit report is a boilerplate, unmodified report, basic, describing what our responsibilities are, what management's responsibilities are. The next page over here, kind of outlines in a 5-bullet point what our responsibilities are. Kind of talks about some of the other information in the audit report, but I do want to spend a little time on the required supplementary information. So when you get the full audit document, I know everybody gets it, and it's like 70 pages long, and you don't know what to do. But if you're going to do anything, you're going to read management's discussion and analysis, and I've been working on that with the business office in terms of, working out the wording in terms of it. So a lot of the things we're going to go over here tonight will be put in a narrative form within the management's discussion and analysis. So if you're not going to read the whole document, it's pretty lengthy. It's pretty, a lot of information in it, but I would really encourage everybody to read that. And the good thing about the management's discussion and analysis is it gives management the opportunity, because it's not an audited piece of the thing, we kind of make sure it ties back to the regular financial statements, but it gives management the, not to talk about 2023, but also to talk about what happened in 2024, what's going to happen in 2025, so it kind of closes the loop. There's a lot of stuff going on in the township, so I really think that's a really important aspect of the management's discussion and analysis. The other part of the required supplementary information is some of the actuarial information. We'll be going over that tonight as well. The next page, just to talk about this real quick, the supplementary information. The township has a lot of funds, a lot of special revenue funds. There's certain ones that don't meet the criteria of what we call major funds. So kind of, in one column on the basic financial statements, it says non-major governmental funds, but in the back of the financial statements, it kind of outlines what all those non-major funds are and what's available for each one of those specific sources. So during the year, you put millage out for streetlights, for parks and recreation. They don't qualify as what we call a major fund within, the 26 million, millions of dollars. I can't add up all of it, but $26 million general fund plus all the other funds. That's supplementary information. 68 million. So on top of the 26 million, but then also you have the schedule of expenditures of federal awards. You're still spending down your ARPA funds. Your typical federal awards consist of the CDBG grant, but as we kind of wind down, I think you'll have a single audit for at least 2024, 2025, and we'll see, how those funds are expended over the next couple of years and see if you're going to need a single audit going into the future. So the good stuff, the numbers. This is another piece of supplementary information that's in the back of the audit report. It's put in the back of the audit report, but I think it's the most important statement in the financial statements, which is the budgetary comparison schedule for the general fund. We don't give an opinion on your budget, but we do give an opinion on your actual numbers. And a lot of the same themes that we had in the past couple of years, things have just, just because of COVID, and then some of the things that have repercussions because of COVID have kind of rippled through, and we're still seeing those in 2023. So what you're going to see up at the top there, just as in any given year, your tax revenue, earned income taxes. We've seen an explosion in earned income taxes across the state and municipalities, and it's been hard to kind of gauge what those revenues are going to be on an annual basis. Your collection agency that collects the earned income taxes gives you an estimate every year, and those estimates have been been beaten by the actual numbers on every given year. So once again, I still encourage the township to be conservative in terms of those numbers. You don't want to get too aggressive in terms of budgeting those numbers. But during 2023, there was a $1.3 million positive variance. On the other hand, those revenue sources in the past couple of years we talked about that had better than anticipated years, really transfer taxes, anything that had to do with building permits, et cetera, we saw a negative, variance related to those. So they kind of came in on the negative side where, you kind of thought it was, even though you were conservative in budgeting those numbers, they still came in a little bit less than anticipated. But on the flip side of that, the interest earnings for the current year were better than anticipated by about $739,000. So that kind of offset any kind of, negative variance we had on those two others. But overall, once again, we're seeing a better than anticipated revenue for the current year. $24.6 million came in at about 26.7, $2 million positive variance. And what I want to stress too, as I was talking to Randy and Fran today, these are one-time revenue sources that can't be always anticipated going into the future. Given the federal funds rate and what's that going to be in the future, and what's earned income taxes going to look like in the future, because they are subject to fluctuation. On the expenditure side, once again, the township always does a good job in terms of budgeting expenditures and, always coming in budget. I mean, obviously we see those those line items that are more prone to, fluctuations, primarily the police, et cetera. But overall, when you look at the expenditures on the next page here, total expenditures, $1.6 million on a $23.6 million budget. To the good. Once again, the township did a nice job with that. So at the beginning of the budget process into last year, you had budgeted to use $2.1 million of fund balance, and that was kind of the the debt service transfer that we were going to use for fund balance. But just because of the good year that you had related to the revenue, plus a little bit of a fluctuation, or better than anticipated on the expenditures, you actually added $2.9 million of fund balance, $15.2 million of fund balance at the beginning of the year, end of the year in general fund, $18.2 million. Any questions, concerns? All good news. All right, the next page here is, so there is a lot of funds, and, there may be 10 other ones which are aggregated in the non-major governmental funds on the side. So not only does the general fund, this is the same information we just looked at, the township also is in a good position related to its capital reserve fund, monies that have been put aside for future capital projects. There's about $16.4 million within that fund, various capital projects occurring throughout the year. The Liquid Fuels Fund, this is a fund that accounts for appropriations from the state of Pennsylvania through PennDOT. There's $5.3 million of funding still available there. Your grant fund, as you're going to see, that the fund balance is only about almost close to zero, but that's because the grant fund is on a reimbursement basis. So any type of grant funding that you get, the revenues and expenditures match each other. So this is where your ARPA funds are being accounted for, and we'll kind of go over here shortly what's left as of December 31st, 2023 related to that. Your refuse fund, you put out an annual billing for the refuse fund. There was an increase in the fee for the current year, so that kind of all washed out in terms of, where you stand at year end. Their end of fund balance at $3.4 million. Debt service fund, money's put aside for future debt service obligations, $7.4 million, and then we have the non-major governmental funds that kind of accounts for everything else. So total fund balance at the end of the year, $52.6 million, which was about $1 million increase across all the funds of the whole township for the year. The next page, so we just went over the ins and the outs, the revenues, the expenditures, and this is just kind of an outline of, what are our current assets over our current liabilities. This doesn't account for any kind of long-term liabilities that the township may have in terms of general obligation debt or anything like that. So when you put your budget out, all you need to be concerned about is what type of revenue do I need to generate on an annual basis, plus or minus any type of reserves that we use to balance our budget on an annual basis. So this is what this is kind of reflecting. What assets do we have? What liabilities did we have for things that were incurred prior to December 31st? And the excess of the two being the fund balance we just talked about. In the case of the general fund, there's the $18.2 million, all of which unassigned. And then everything else has categories or commitments or restricted. So even though you may have, $50 million of fund balance, there's restrictions on these funds and the way they could be spent. So the general fund is the only fund in which you have resources that could be spent in a manner or at your discretion. But as you can see up there at the top, I just want to point out as well, your biggest asset, if you look at the total column on the right-hand side, is all liquid, which in your liquid cash, about $58.6 million. And just because of Pennsylvania laws, et cetera, you can't, that has to be all in very, money market funds, or it can't be anything, any kind of stocks or anything like that. Liabilities, you're going to see what your biggest liability is. Accounts payable are all things that are due and payable shortly after year end, a little bit higher because you were doing the construction for the rescue plan, for the capital reserve fund. But the unearned revenue, this is your American Rescue Plan money. There was about $6.5 million at the end of the year to be spent related to this. So as that money gets spent down, it'll get recognized as revenue and matched against the expenditure in the applicable year. Anybody have any questions, concerns? Yeah. And then there's, so we just went over your governmental funds. So also there's a sewer fund, and this is reflected as a proprietary fund because it kind of operates more like a business and being funded totally by charges for services to the residents of the township. So there was a lot of activity within the sewer fund for the current year just because of all the construction that was going on related to the wastewater treatment plant. So as a result, during the current year, There was an increase in the fees, so what you're gonna see is the increase in charges for services, because you anticipate future debt service, et cetera, related to, and you spend a lot of your funding down for the upgrades to the wastewater treatment plant. But also what you're gonna see there in that other revenue line, what's in that other revenue line, the decrease there is kind of line up and marry up with, how we talked about the building permits and how they were under budget. These are the sewer connection fees, so it's kind of like goes hand in hand. So if you have less building permits and less development, less sewer connections, et cetera, so. Total operating expenses, once again, pretty much in line with the previous year, just like in the general fund. The township does a nice job in terms of making sure things are in line, not only with the previous year, but also with amounts that are budgeted. And then there's things called non-operating revenues expenses. And the only thing I'm gonna point out down here is that $2 million and that $1.4 million in intergovernmental revenues. Those were the ARPA funding that were transferred over to help pay for some of that construction during 2023 related to the wastewater treatment plant. So overall, your change in net position was a positive $2.2 million for the sewer fund for the current year. And a lot of that had to do with the intergovernmental revenues, because the offset to that is in an expenditure, it's getting capitalized and then depreciated solely over the life of the asset. So we're gonna see that right here on this page. This is the balance sheet. So the balance sheet, the spend down to the cash, the increase of the capital assets for the wastewater treatment plant. Also, once again, accounts payable are higher just because of the construction that's going on during the year. And then also, as you can see at the bottom, your current assets over your current liabilities is going to approximate the unrestricted net position at year end. And your biggest asset is being your net investment in capital assets related to the cost of your capital assets less the outstanding debt that was used to acquire those capital assets. And then down to my last two slides. The last two slides, I think it's really important here. Net pension police liability. So last year, 2022, it was a year in which the market performance did not do that great. There was an increase in the liability. It was an asset. Your police pension was an asset of $3.2 million, over 100% funded. The market went backwards. 2022, we had a liability of $13.6 million. There's a lot of things that go into the calculation. But then, obviously, we all know 2023 was a better year for investment performance, and once again in 2024. So hopefully that $11 million liability, will keep on trending back towards an asset, and the assets of the trust exceeding the actual actuarial liability at year end. But overall, when you look at the police pension trust, 84% funded is more than acceptable in the state size. Also, you have one other pension fund. This one's a little bit different in the way it's presented in the financial statements. This is the non-uniform pension. This is through Pennsylvania Municipal Retirement System. And just because of the fact that they're on the same fiscal year as the township is, everything's on a one-year lag. But the one thing I do want to point out, even though this is on a one-year lag and being presented within the audit report, even with the bad investment performance in 2022, the plan still had an asset at the end of December 31st, 2022. So once we see 2023, we're going to see a bigger asset, and same thing in 2024. I think Pierre Mars does a nice job in terms of that program and that investment vehicle for pension funds that I've seen at the different municipalities. And the last thing here is the schedule of findings and question costs. We want to talk about the important things. What kind of audit opinion do we have? What are our reserves across the board? But the other thing is, were there any kind of significant deficiencies or material weaknesses within the township? The township has a nice position in terms of they could employ adequate internal controls within their business office staff. Also, we kind of look at the oversight of the government or governance in terms of the board and what they're doing on a monthly basis by reading the minutes, et cetera, to make sure that there's active oversight by them. Also, as part of the audit, like I said, once again, we had the single audit that had to audit the ARPA funding for the current year. We had no issues as well with that. So the good news about that is there's such active oversight by the state on this funding, on a quarterly basis, having to report it, and we're looking at it. So by the time we look at it after the fact, everything's in, good shape, being looked at from different angles, so forth. And as you can see down there at the bottom, this is the first year, because Bristol didn't have a single audit for a couple of years, so they had a single audit the past 2 years, and you need 2 years of a clean single audit to be qualified as a low-risk auditee, so you were qualified as a low-risk auditee for the current year. So, but once it falls off and you don't do a single audit, you have to go through the whole process again of qualifying as a low-risk auditee. And that's all I have. So,
Thank you.
yep.
A lot of information really quick.
I'm gonna, within the next 2 weeks, I want to get this done, or I have to keep one eye open sleeping at night, because as soon as I'm gonna get, yes. Yeah, that's a, yep.
Thank you for your presentation.
All right, thanks. Thanks, Sam. Thanks.
Nice to see you.
Yep.
All right. We have, next on the agenda, thank you again, Carl. Next on the agenda, we have a little housekeeping. We have an ordinance of the Township of Bristol amending Chapter 205 zoning to remove floodplain regulations that conflict with other ordinances. Somebody want to explain a little bit on it, so for the people at home?
Sure. So this is something that it's our understanding when we adopted the FEMA's standalone floodplain ordinance, all of the FEMA or all the floodplain regulations were to be removed from zoning and kept in that FEMA ordinance. There was some references to floodplain still in the zoning, which this ordinance amendment would remove and eliminate.
Okay, good. So we need a motion on that. Motion by Cindy Murphy.
I'll second it.
Second by Joe Glasson on that motion. Do we have any questions? All in favor? Aye. Anyone opposed? Thank you. Next, we have application of Justice Storage LLC, DBA Units of Bucks County, 2198 Rittenhouse Circle, Bristol Tax Parcel Number 5-023-057, requesting conditional use approval for outside storage of empty containers in a P1 Bland Industrial Zone District. Good
Good
evening.
evening. I'm Ed Murphy. I'm here tonight on behalf of the applicant. As Chairman indicated, the property is on Rittenhouse Circle. It is already an approved warehouse use. As I think most people know, if you've gone by there, there is empty storage containers located throughout the property. And concern the township had was that they were not organized and they were sort of scattered, and the conditional use request appropriately required a plan to be prepared, and we've now identified locations where the storage units can be placed. Some were not within restricted setbacks and all that stuff. So cleaned all that up. We have a plan. Your planning commission recommended approval of it. Most recently, yesterday, we had conversations with Bob and Kurt and John about the landscaping plan that the ordinance requires, and we've made some adjustments to the landscaping plan at the township engineer's request. We've accepted those changes, plans being prepared to reflect those changes, and we're here tonight seeking approval subject to our submission of that revised plan showing the additional buffer plantings around the perimeter. That's it.
Got it.
Unlike your auditor, I didn't take even 5 minutes, so.
Yeah. So you get brownie points tonight. So on that, we need a motion.
First off, just a couple things. It's a public hearing, so we do have to open up before the motion. If there's anyone seeking party status or anything to comment with regards to this application.
And I should say that Randy and Scott both asked if I had an issue in proceeding on the conditional use without the presence of a court reporter, and I indicated I was comfortable doing so.
Seeing no one, the only thing else I'll add is just as a housekeeping item, the application and the advertising notice will be exhibits accepted into the record. At this point, with no public comment, a motion is in order and we can close the public hearing.
We need a motion to close the public
No,
hearing?
no, motion is in order.
Right,
We'll close
to
the
move
public
forward.
hearing.
Okay.
Yes.
We need a motion?
I'll make that motion.
Motion by Joe Glasson,
I'll second it.
Second by Sidney Murphy. On the motion, is there any questions? All in favor? Aye. Anyone opposed? Thank you. Thanks, Ed. Good to see you.
Good, thanks, guys.
Next, we have an ordinance of the Township of Township of Bristol, Bucks County, vacating a portion of 7th Avenue between Haynes Road and Kenwood Drive, a paper street in the township.
I can handle this one for,
Okay.
you'll be aware that this is coming up. We'll have a land development here in a few moments. This is a paper street. It's already being somewhat used by both the applicant's property as well as neighboring property. My understanding is they've reached an agreement. They've been able to figure out how it's going to be delineated, so we're able to vacate it here, and the empty road, the non-existent road, the property will go back to the property owners for their use and enjoyment.
So we need a motion.
Yes.
We need a motion to vacate the road. We have a motion by Mary Ann Wagner.
I'll second.
Second by Joe Glasson on the motion. Any questions? All in favor? Aye. Thank you. Okay.
Joe's hot tonight.
Yeah.
Can't be sleeping.
All right. We have to move along on our agenda here. Consider approval of voucher list and requisitions dated October 17th, 2024, in the amount of $4,202,120.54. And last is consider approval of September 19th, 2024 council meeting minutes. We need a motion on the consent agenda. Motion by Mary Ann Wagner,
I'll second.
second by Sidney Murphy. On the motion, is there any questions? All in favor? Aye. Anyone opposed? Thank you. Next, we have Township Manager.
Thank you, President Bowen. So one of the things that I did not explain in executive session, we have a video. It's so the senior center project has begun. They've demoed, a lot of the existing structures that needed to be demolished and removed of some trees. So we did get a video, like a walkthrough of what the proposed building is going to look like. So we're going to show that now.
Mr. Lycon, pay attention, because you'll be using this facility in the near future.
Billiards, pool table, that's what I can play pool. Very nice.
So,
That's really nice.
so yeah, that's exciting. And again, this is with a $4 million grant from Congressman Fitzpatrick's office, and a $1 million grant for the senior center, and a $1 million grant for the fire station from Representative Tina Davis. So we're very grateful. This is so that's $6 million in grants. This is about an $8.5 million project, $8 to $9 million project. So that we're very appreciative, and yes. So like I said, the senior center we'll post this video, let our residents and their seniors know what the fly through, and then when there's going to be any if there's going to be any changes or any cutoffs for any driveways, we'll just keep informed with the township website going forward. We successfully had our fall cleanup last weekend. I know Council President Bowen was out there directing traffic and assisting. I know a big thank you to Joan Lamina and to Charlie Durnley and all of our Public Works crew. They really helped out with limited volunteers coming, so they really stepped up and assisted with the removal from the items from the cars. We've posted and advised that Phase 1 of Randall Avenue Bridge has been completed. Also like to give a very big thank you to Gilmore, Dennis Kennedy for sure, of course Kurt always, but Dennis for sure. And NTM is the service that is doing the inspections for PennDOT. They were great to work with, and Amtrak, as we got later onto the process and we got into a groove, they were good to work with. And then Haynes and Kibblehouse were a fantastic contractor. So we're continuing on with the finalization of the specifications for the second phase, working with different contractors, and we're hopeful by the end of the month, early beginning of next month, that'll be out to the contractors, and then we'll update after that. I'm just gonna mention it once, and then I'm not gonna take any thunder away, and then Heather can give all the updates. But we are working on, as we had said, a new website that is actually moving forward this time because of Heather. And we're looking at a launch at the beginning of January, or middle of January, right? January 9th, was it? 16th?
It was, since we are partnering with the senior center.
Yeah, yeah.
So we have a minor delay, but positively on the launch of the website from January 9th to, I believe, January 29th now, because we are going in partnership with the Senior Center, where they will be part of our contract with Civic Plus, and they will be able to have a new website as well that they are paying for, but it's underneath, our security, so it's giving them a little bit of support as well. So altogether, both the township will have a new website and the Senior Center will have a new website by the end of January.
Did you hear that, Gerard? You'll be able to go on and check the senior center out. Thank you. Anything else?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, it's been busy. So I just wanted to, if I haven't gotten back to some of the phone calls or emails, I'm just giving updates here, and then, obviously I'll get back to the phone calls and emails. We've had a lot of homeless encampments throughout the township, and we have had coordination with either the Turnpike Commission, with PennDOT, with private property owners, and then some have been on our properties, township municipal-owned properties. Public Works has been amazing and doing a lot of the cleanup on some of the properties, and then we've been, with our police department, been able to coordinate with the property owners. So with PennDOT, they've cleaned out their properties behind Route 13 down on Schumacher Drive. Then there's also been private properties behind that off of Pearl Buck that have been cleaned up. We have been advised that more are starting on township properties, so we're going to be working with that, and then some on county properties as well. So I would have to say thank you to Sergeant Mancuso, who's, because of the amount of encampments that have been popping up, we have a procedure in place now, and it's been toned and it's been worked out. So now we have a very good process, posting properties, telling property owners to post, and getting it cleaned up, as well as getting anybody that is seeking assistance as well.
My question is, are we putting any processes in place to prevent this from recurring? Because it seems like as soon as we clean out a particular area, they're moved to another area, and then go back to that other area, and then time and resources is spent with our public works, our police department, in a constant effort. So is there anything that we can do to cut down?
So that's one of the things I talked to Charlie, our Public Works Director, about, especially about the property that we own that's near Grundy Gardens behind
Fencing
ShopRite.
it?
So there's constant holes being cut in the fence, because it is fenced in.
Right.
It's a 6-foot-high fence. We will look at that, as well as trim some trees so that the overhang isn't so low. And, there are
To make it
things-
less hospitable
Right,
is the
and then
goal.
with the police department and the DA's office have advised that now when it's our property and it's posted, or if it's a private property and it's posted, the DA has said, please arrest the
As a
trespassers if they
vagrant,
don't leave.
vagrancy?
Yes, and so that way that they can get help if needed, because if they move on and they don't have an address, we can't follow them and assist them with help, or the county can't. So that's a process.
I'm just, want to get it out there. I understand how difficult the problem is. It's whack-a-mole in a lot of respects. So anything that we can do to reduce that and talk them into getting services, because they are available.
Correct.
And they're expanding locally. So,
So I have a couple more. Sorry, we've been
go
very, very
ahead,
busy.
sorry.
From the tragedy that happened at Route 13 and Beaver Dam, State Representative Tina Davis had requested a meeting with PennDOT. Representatives from the borough as well as the township were there. Representatives from Santa Sarah's office were also there. The PennDOT has worked out, I guess a couple years ago, they put in the delineators on the state road on 13, as well as they reestablished the crosswalks. Now, with that intersection, they would like to. They've come up with a proposal to increase or push up the delineators that are there now currently, and not have the crosswalk stop at the Burger King driveway. Because that makes it a harder sight distance to see for cars coming. So it was a very productive meeting. The work will be coming forth very shortly. And I would like to thank Vince Caputo from PennDOT that did very well with the proposal and a solution. 2 more updates. One is we had budgeted for this year to go to our 29 parks that have playgrounds on them, and to put in the required softball that is for liability, safety sakes and liability sakes, as well as the edging, and put up some simple ramps to get up onto the softball. We did hear of some concerns from the residents. This was a budgeted thing. We hadn't really made our parks compliant, and that's what we're doing. This is no way saying that the park has been upgraded. This is just part of an upgrade to the park, or it's really just maintenance and upkeeping. So we still have our open space plan, our parks plan that we're going through, and we'll determine out of all the parks that have not been touched, which ones will be and when. And once we get that long-term plan associated with the timeline, we'll let everybody know, as well as council. And one last update, I was actually a panelist on the Solid Waste Advisory Committee, and it talked about, it was through, we meet quarterly, and it was through this one was an education on recycling for our residents. So that was, it was recorded on Zoom, and so I will get that out to all of council as well as our residents. I would encourage people to take a look. It talked about, why are prices increasing, why are services decreasing, and this gave a lot of examples and a lot of questions answered. Thank you. That is all.
Thank you very much. Next is a report from Township Solicitor,
Yes, thank you, Mr.
Craig Bowen.
Sorry. I know who you are.
Okay, done.
They got a little choked up just seeing
That's
you
all
again.
right.
No, thank you, Mr. President. I have nothing to report in this evening. Obviously, we have a couple items, and as they come up, I will talk about those.
Thank you. Next, moving along, new business, we have application of Bristol Reality Group, P.O. Box 5, Flower Town, requesting final land development approval for self-storage facility on property located at 1502-1510 Haynes Road, Levittown, tax parcel number 5-075-228 in a commercial zone district. Hi.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Greg Elko with Langen Engineering. I've been here for a bit of time, just a little bit of history on this. We are here in front of you to get final land development approval. We were here way back in December of '21 We got our zoning approval then, and then a couple years later in '23, we got, in March of '23, we got our preliminary approval. Since that time, it was referenced before, there was a paper street on our property, partially on our property. And the delay between March of 2023 and basically July, when we submitted these plans, was that the owner of our property, the applicant, was meeting and dealing with the owner of the apartments. And essentially, they came to an agreement to swap land. So the land, the part of the 7th Avenue right-of-way that was on the apartment property is now part of the Bristol Realty property. And so, actually, if you go forward, I can show this to you really quickly on slide number 12. You can see here, so this is what the deposition of the properties were before the swap. So the yellow is the part of 7th Avenue right-of-way on our property, our client's property. Green was on the apartment property, and blue is on the residential property that's along Haynes Road. If you go forward one slide, you'll see now that the yellow is entirely within the property of 1502 Haynes Road, basically the Bristol Realty's property. So that's what was vacated, and now what this will allow to happen is that that part of the property in yellow can be used for the development. And we do have, there's a stormwater rain garden facility within that piece of property. So that's what the cause of the delay was of basically the last 18 months or so. But that's really it. Nothing has really changed. The layout is still the same. If you go back one or two, let me see, if you go back to slide number 8, just as a refresher, it is taking all the outdoor storage that's in the back of the property now and cleaning it up, removing all that, putting self-storage facility in a variety of different buildings here. The pharmacy, the office and apartment building, the restaurant and the retail shop all stay the same, but we put site improvements. So we put pavement, delineated parking, signs, striping. We close an entrance, we consolidate an entrance. Everything gets cleaned up for this property to facilitate what's happening in the back. And there's an automotive building in the back there that's going to get converted basically to an office building for the self-storage facility. There is one waiver that we're asking for. If you go forward to slide number 11, the waiver is there's a rain garden here, essentially a stormwater facility in that 7th Avenue right-of-way. It's in an area of a sump. A sump is an area that doesn't really drain. All the area around it is higher. So we can't put an emergency spillway in an area where there's nowhere for it to spill. So we're asking for a waiver to forego an emergency spillway for this facility. But what we did is we analyzed the storms going to this, the 100-year storm. It only ponds 2 feet in the 100-year storm. There is a grate that is at the outlet of this rain garden that is at that 100-year elevation. So it acts sort of like a spillway where it'll go into the grate. And then we've also made sure, because it's in a sump condition, that during a 100-year storm, there's still vertical distance or freeboard between the 100-year elevation and any habitable space around it, the closest being the apartments on the adjacent property. So that 100-year storm will stay within the property. So in my opinion, it's a safe condition.
So when if it would happen to overflow into the grate, where's that grate go?
Yeah, that was my question.
So, yeah, is there a pointer here?
Is that our stormwater management?
This here is for the property.
Got it.
Right.
It will flow into these underground pipes here
Okay.
that will collect in an underground stormwater detention
storage.
system.
Okay,
And then it'll drain out towards Haynes Road here.
okay.
So it's going to be released ultimately.
Correct.
But held up in that underground basin.
The intent is for infiltration to happen, not only in the rain garden, but in this underground system. We did infiltration
We
tests.
can
We know
manage
it's
the
that.
flow a little
Yes.
bit. It'll, right.
All right.
Correct.
Kurt, am I interpreting that right? All right.
Good.
Yeah, I didn't want to hear that the grate was going into our stormwater system.
Right.
Directly.
Right.
Yeah,
Right, exactly.
okay.
If approved, how soon will they be starting to clean up the property?
For the property right now, so I would say maybe sometime mid next year.
I'm sorry, I didn't.
Sometime mid next year.
Okay,
Late spring, early summer? something like that? Late summer, okay.
All right, thank you. All right, so,
I'll make that motion.
motion by Patrick Antonello. I'll second it. Second by Marcia Dunlap on the motion. Is there any questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Thank you. Good luck.
Thank
Thanks
you.
for seeing
I
it.
appreciate it. Thank you.
Good luck. Take care, fellas.
Thank you. Yes.
Kurt. Yeah, man. You just seem disinterested today. What, do you got a bet? Are you betting? What are you on? Bet, what's that?
Okay, let's, moving along, we have Bucks County Consortium salt bid. Consideration to take appropriate actions. Do we need a little definition on that, please?
Sure. So as you said, it's Bucks County Consortium salt bid. Morton Salt came in at the low at $60.95 a ton, and a motion is in order.
We need a motion?
I'll make that motion.
Motion by Cindy Murphy.
I'll second it.
Second by Joe Glassman on the motion. Is there any questions? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Thank you. Next, we have a resolution authorizing application to the 2024 PICO Green Region Open Space Program for Municipal Parks Trees Buffer and Replacement Project.
Thank you again, President Bowen. This is an annual grant that we always submit. We usually submit the maximum for the $10,000. We have a lot of parks. We need a lot of trees. So that's what we'll be submitting. So a motion is in order.
I'll make that motion.
Motion by Cindy Murphy. Second by Marcia Dunlap on the motion. Is there any questions? All in favor? Anyone opposed? Thank you. Next, we have consider interim settlement agreement between Bristol Township and Roman Hawes Company. Who wants to?
This is not a bad thing.
No.
We have reached interim settlement agreement with the conditions that Roman Haas and the township will agree. If there's any major changes, it'll come back in front of council. You've seen the workings of the interim settlement agreement about getting the $3.5 million and then getting a phase 2 completed. So that motion is in order.
Okay, we need a motion.
I'll make
Motion by Patrick Antonello, second by Cindy Murphy. On the motion, is there any questions? All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Thank you. Next, consider sale of the Bristol Township Atkins Pump Station and Service Area to the Bucks County Water and Sewer Authority.
Yeah, you're representing the other side.
Yes. I can just stand at the podium and talk if you want.
As we had gotten Gilmore on, we had great potential or thought processes of what we could do at the township. It's really fun to be at that place in this area. Steve Walsh has been amazing for us. Again, so has Kurt. We have discussed this many times. The goal is to try to just keep the Croydon service area, make it easier for our residents, make it easy for developers. This is the first part of parching out of all the areas. This area is the Atkins Pump Station, and that we just replaced the station 2 years ago, and we lined all the mains as well. This was once owned by Bristol Borough and then was sold to Bucks County Water Sewer. So basically is, in the township, the mains, the laterals from our residents went into the mains that were under our streets and then flowed to the wastewater treatment plant over at Bristol Borough, which is now owned by Bucks County Water Sewer Authority. So if somebody had to come in and do some type of a repair, it would be a permit from both operations. So we're just trying to streamline and make things easier on our residents. We had spoken to Bucks County Water Sewer, asked if they would be interested in purchasing the service area, which included the asset of the pump station. They were. We just had the EDUs were received by the township for the lighthouse at Norton, which is a development that's 62-unit apartment complex that's over there that's under construction now. So we received those EDUs. We offset that with the total construction and lining costs or output costs that we have, and then we came up with a sale price for the difference, which is $52,410. But the good part is we're recouping $307,000. It's $307,410 for for everything that we've done in that service station in the last 5 years. So a motion is in order. Unless I said anything that,
Joe?
anything to add?
Yeah, no, I mean, Bucks, obviously this was something we were conflicted with. We represented Bucks County, as Russ represented you guys extremely well. Yeah, Bucks County is excited. I mean, these are, as Randy said, these are already going to Bristol Borough and our Bucks County Water and Sewer customers. There's no reason for you guys to be maintaining a pump station, that everything comes to us for.
Yep. I think I have a motion by Joe Glasson.
You do.
And a second by Cindy Murphy. On the motion, is there any questions? All in favor? Aye. Anyone opposed? Thank you. Next, we have consider purchase of .546 acres at the corner of Levittown Parkway with Magnolia. Turn, tax parcel number 5-046-229, located adjacent to the Township Magnolia Park. You want to, okay.
So we had discussed this property before. It was before us informally for a rezoning of the property and then development of the property. It's just it's a small site. It's a corner that's adjacent to one adjacent to one of our parks. The development there, potential development there, could be greater than what we want to see. And if it can even happen. So we reached out and spoke to the property owner. They got an appraised value. We made an offer off of that appraised value. They countered. We're selling at $210,000 for the half-acre property to join into the township 5-acre property, as well as the seller is paying for all legal and title fees.
I'll make that motion.
Motion by Patrick Antonella. Second by Mary Ann Wagner on the motion. Is there any questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Thank you. Is that where the pickleball courts are going? All night long?
I thought we were putting them in at Washington, though.
You know, that's a great idea. Down the road, we'll have to.
But that would work in that little park there.
It would be busy all the time. That's the only problem.
Yeah, and there's little kids play there, and then you'd have to put a parking lot in, too. Nope, never mind that.
Okay, Pat. All right, next, last on the agenda, almost, consider new contract with Paycon, a payroll and human resource management system.
All right, I will be taking this one. So in the past couple of months, we have been in talks with Paycom. So the township currently has a payroll system, and then which is ADP, and has a technically 2 timekeeping systems through VCS, and we have no digital human resources system. And so what is unique about Paycom is that they are all of those things and more. So we would be basically streamlining things for both significantly for our staff on payroll, as well as timekeeping, them getting their pay, all of that, but especially in the human resources sides of things and being able to track paperwork, streamline things for our staff as well within the human resources components. It'll all be in one system. It's got a really great application side of things for staff. It's got a great application for management. And so I think it'll really alleviate a lot of manual work that's being done, duplication, and try to eliminate any discrepancies that could happen between having multiple systems. I think it'll really streamline us and make it a lot better. So.
Okay. I'll make the motion for efficiency.
Yes, and bureaucracy.
I do have a question, though.
Okay, good.
Is there, Is there a competitor that offers this type of software or program? I'm just curious. Not that you know of.
So in this particular case, with the system being built meant to work together instead, so that's the unique thing. Paycom has developed all of their systems themselves and worked to and made sure that they all
So
work
they're
together
integrated.
well.
Yeah,
Yes.
I
Well, it's
understand.
not even that they're integrated. It's that they didn't go and buy a payroll company, and they didn't go buy a timekeeping company and a human resources company and made it so they all can work together. This was made for it especially to work together.
They built this particular
They built
system.
it.
And my question is, really,
Yes.
is there anybody else that built a system like that? Only in the interest of being,
So that was one of my questions to Scott earlier in the week. Because to explain that this has no competitors. This is, it's not proprietary, but it's very single source, because we have, again, we have payroll, we have time and attendance. So everybody has something, but nobody has all these features together.
Cool.
And so then this would
And-
actually only be, a $10,000
yeah,
increase
the
of what
price
we're paying
point is,
now.
it's really marginal for what you're going to get in return. It's money well spent. I get that, but I just was, want to know everything, so there you go.
We need a motion.
I'll make that motion.
Motion by Pat,
Oh, she had
do
a
we have
motion.
it
I'll
already?
second that motion.
Already seconded.
No, get rid of him. You ask a question, you lose,
I lose the motion.
right.
It's not the first time I lost a motion in my life.
I'm waiting with bated
Okay.
breath for,
On that motion, all in favor? Is anyone
Aye.
opposed to this? All right, thank you. Good, thank you. Yes, all right.
real quick, how fast will that be implemented?
Very quickly. So Paycom's ready to go
Oh, so give
basically
them the word.
tomorrow. And then we are hoping that the first of the year, we will be able to roll out
Good time.
all of the pieces. It'll obviously take training, and we'll work with them progressively throughout the year to make sure that our staff are happy. But as far as payroll goes, first of the year.
Great.
In addition to that, the good part is we will be going from, right now, we're getting paid by, at the 1st or the 15th of the month and the 30th of the month, 31st. Now we'd be actually going to a normal process of biweekly. So we'll be getting 24 pays instead of 26.
Got it.
And then also, since, for the work that you all do up there and the pennies that you receive, you will be getting that, like the cool part is that before payroll is processed, you get an email version of what your check will look like. Yeah, exactly. And if you have more pennies, we appreciate it. But that's just the integration, and then, of what, it's one of the things that is really awesome about Paycom too, that Grace and Heather have introduced me to, is that it's holding the employees accountable. So rather than the processes that we go through now, where there's a new hire and all this paperwork has to be filled out, and then if they want to change any exemptions or anything like that, it's a process where they have to fill it out. They have to go to payroll. Now the employee can then go onto the system manually, make all the changes, and then submit it, and then it goes through. And there's a lot of changes that they can make manually, and then it'll go up for approval. So it's not like it's
Yeah,
just
I
a stream
understand.
through.
No,
But
it's great. Yeah, it's all good stuff.
Coming on site to train, or?
Yes, so that's actually one of the beautiful things. We'll be working out of with the team out of Philadelphia. So they'll be coming on site to train, and they'll individually sit down with each of our staff members to work with them through it.
Good.
That's good.
done after this. But this is one of the several efficiency programs that Heather has brought to our attention that we've been looking through. So it's an exciting time in Bristol. It's a great day for Bristol Township.
It's a fun place to live, work, and play. Okay. Okay, so now, we're moving along to other business. Is there any other business? No, you're good? Everybody good?
I heard that somebody's a grandfather now.
Congratulations, Mr. Lycon. See, that senior center is going to come in handy. All right. Comments from council members? Everybody lay it on.
Just want to say thank you for coming to Willie Mae Williams' funeral. Frank Bowen and Cindy Murphy.
Yep.
And also the flowers
Yep.
from the township.
It's the least we could do.
Yes, thank you.
There is upcoming events, Halloween movie night, Wednesday, October 30th, right here at the Municipal Complex. Then we have the holiday parade coming Saturday, November 23rd at 12 o'clock at the Brookwood Elementary to Mill Creek. And then we have the holiday tree lighting right here, Saturday, December 7th at 6 p.m. So we'll remind you of the next meeting. And that's all for me. Anybody else?
Well, I'd just like to encourage everybody, since we may not see them again until after the election, the general election, election for state offices, as well as the presidential election, comes up on Tuesday, November 5th. Early voting is open already in the state of Pennsylvania. If you'd like to vote by mail or drop box, you can still do that. You can even still register in the state of Pennsylvania if you're not registered to vote yet. And we encourage everybody to do that. And it's a very important right that we all enjoy. And I encourage everybody to use it, especially this year. And as a Democrat, I strongly encourage you to vote for the Democratic candidates. Thanks so much.
Thank you, Pat, for that. Next is opportunity for residents to address council, and we have a whole list of residents. Wes? Probably the only one. I think so. Come on up, Wes. It's always good to see you. Glad you took the 5 minutes out of your night to come on up.
I don't know, the rest of the people might not be happy.
Oh, everybody's happy because we're going home after this.
I'll be telling them, be careful who they're voting for. You got a former district attorney, now judge, that is for election, Weintraub. Now, I tell you to be careful because he was directly involved with the Jim and Tina Davis theft of $37,000 that got cleared off the books, and it's like nothing ever happened. He and Paul Lang, the attorney, was involved in that. So be careful there. He might not be as great as he projects himself to be.
He's a Republican, Wes.
What else we have,
Well,
Wes?
so what's that got to do with it?
Well, I'm not voting for
Hey,
him.
hey, you can't be prejudiced, man.
What else we got, Wes?
Now, that, when he was DA, him and your detective, Michael Slaughter, was involved in the Justice for Joy, looking into the murder of Joy Hibbs. And they prosecuted Atkins for it, but it was known that it was corruption in the township, and it was covered up by police officers and detectives and county detectives. Nobody else got prosecuted for that. So this happened under Weintraub's administration.
Anything else?
Now,
Anything else there, Wes?
oh yeah, now,
Okay.
since we're talking about police corruption, we can talk about your chief of police now that was public service director for 3 years. Now, my assumption of that was that they kept him as a public service director so they could see, and they could see if he was gonna play ball with all the rest of the people in the township. And if he wasn't gonna play ball with them, then he could go out. If he would have made chief of police, and he was chief of police, it'd be very hard to get him out because he would be in a union. Now, all this has to do with that I asked if I could do PowerPoint demonstrations here, and I'm told, no, I can't do that. Probably because you don't want me to bring up any proof and show it in PowerPoint. So
Is that it?
I'll ask that question again,
Oh,
and I'll put it in writing this time, and you can give me an answer as to why you won't allow me to do a PowerPoint demonstration.
well, Wes, we thank you for coming out. It's always a pleasure.
I don't
Looking
know.
forward to see you in the next meeting, November 30th.
Oh, if the Lord lets me be here, I'll be here.
All right. Thank you,
So,
Wes.
you
Enjoy
better-
your evening.
So you better pray to him every night.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you, Wes, for the advice. On that, we need a motion to adjourn. All in favor? All right. Thank you, everybody. We'll see you in a couple weeks. Thanks for coming out.